just witness the young people who are ready to take extraordinary risks to cross the Mediterranean to go to Europe in search for better lives. The solution is not going to Europe. The solution is at home. And governments and the international community must work together to address this issue of the youth. And the youth is cross-cutting because they are women and young men. Unlike the other issue, which was just about the women, but this one is both men and women, boys and girls. And underlying all this is the issue of human rights. This country is a signatory to all the conventions on human rights. This country has set examples in many ways. In the observance and the implementation of human rights instruments, but we are still need to do more. The issue of corruption is a human rights issue. And on this, I think the government should allow the public, the citizenry, and the organizations to be part of the war against corruption. If corruption is denying the rights of access to law, to justice, to dignity, to basic services, it is a violation of human rights. The government, enlightened as our government has been, sometimes would really need the participation of the public to engage in addressing these issues. In the war against corruption and the dishonesty and loss of public resources, it's not enough to strengthen the institutions of enforcement and the coordination among them, but to engage the civil society, particularly human rights groups, in exposing these kind of evils in our society. We have had the bad reputation over the issue of albinism. But I am very happy with the tremendous energy that the current government is now determined to address this issue. And we hope sooner than later it will be history in this country. I must also warn the people of Tanzania and the coming government that this country, like other countries in Africa and the world, are facing new threats to peace and security. They are the traditional threats of poverty, ill health, but the new threats are around the issue of international terrorism. Our instruments of law enforcement must learn in new ways. In the same ways as we have to learn new ways of dealing with corruption, we have to find new ways of dealing with the new threats like terrorism, human trafficking, trafficking of drugs, which are not only threatening the peace and security of the ordinary citizens, but the evils of drug trafficking and human trafficking is a new form of slavery. This war cannot be fought by Tanzania alone. We have to work with our neighbors. We have to work with the international community. I want this issue to be given special attention. Our army, our police, our intelligence services need to get the requisite resources and know-how on how to deal with this threat. but above all is to engage the public. They must be partners with the instruments of peace and security in every country. I said in my introduction about my very rich, close, and sometimes sensitive experience of the positions I held under President Nyerere in the security sector at a time when Tanzania was going through major economic changes and the liberation of Southern Africa was taking place critically. That gave me a rare strategic opportunity to understand this country, to know the people, to know the challenges in the entire spectrum from security to economic, social, and political. And that knowledge helped me greatly when I was appointed to take positions in foreign countries. I started working for the Tanzania Diplomatic Service in Canada, moved on to Geneva, joined the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, served in Liberia, served in India, served in the Great Lakes, served in Italy, the Vatican, and all these places, and of course, the United Nations as a permanent representative of Tanzania, where I had the opportunity to lead the Tanzania team in the Security Council, and for 1 month as president of the Security Council. My last major international assignment was the special representative of the Secretary General for Somalia for 3 years. Now let me assure my fellow Tanzanians that apart from the strategic and very highly placed position which I was given in this country before I went outside, by definition, to represent a country means you have to understand the dynamics, the trend of your country by the day. I have used my time outside to understand the international system, but also to see the extent to which the international system can benefit my country. And to benefit my country, I have to understand the political, economic, social, cultural trends in my country. An ambassador who doesn't understand his country is not worth the title. And I have learned about my country through the hard way because I have to satisfy the curiosity, the needs, and to match that international experience with the needs of my country. More important, as an international civil servant, whether with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees for 11 years, or as a representative of the Secretary General in Somalia for 3 years, as a permanent representative of Tanzania to the United Nations, I've held various positions. I took part in the formation of the Peace-Building Commission. I participated in the launching and study of delivering as one with the Ambassador of Ireland, on the Peace-Building Commission with the Ambassador of Denmark. I have been chairperson of defining the protection of civilians as one of the cardinal mandates of peacekeeping missions. I have been a representative in Liberia, in the Great Lakes, in India, in Italy, and these are positions of leadership. Leadership is universal, But for me, I've had leadership internationally, and that I can translate into leadership nationally. President Kikwete has said a leader must be somebody who is known outside and is known inside. I have developed these abilities of leadership, which now I want to bring back to my country. And that's why I thought the blend of international experience and knowledge of my country would be useful at the highest level of leadership. There is no better and greater need for investment than investing in education. There is no better investment than in education. And sports must be an integral part of the education we are giving to our youth. And we shouldn't hesitate to put investment which begins from very early childhood education, which should incorporate sports at that level of age throughout, beyond schools and universities. Games and sports must be integrated and become an integral part of the national undertaking. This country is next to Kenya. The Kenya highlands are very similar to the highlands of Tanzania, not only in northern Tanzania, but also in southern Tanzania. There is no reason why our athletes shouldn't be as good as the Kenyans because we have the environment. The answer is that maybe we haven't put enough resources. And this can be done. It is an incremental process. It must be part of the national culture. And this issue of sports all around also creates discipline. We need this country to have strict discipline. And among the issues that can create the national ethics and the national ethos is through sports. I should have said when I was making my presentation on the institutions of defense and security, our armed forces, our police have been the citadels of discipline. Our national service is a place where we should create vocational training within the national service, but also integrate the whole issue of sports in our, and their performance has been outstanding. If that can be done in the armed forces and police, why can't it be done to the civilians as well? But it needs investment. And the sports and games is a science. We have to have instructors, we have to have good diet, nutrition, and invest in all this. Tanzania has a tremendous potential for excelling not only in athletics, but also in other sports. Again, like other issues, it needs a political will, political decisions, and to put the requisite investment and resources in developing this attribute that I believe our young people have. On the issue of women, let me pay my due respect and recognition and actually praise to the Fourth Faith government for advancing really at a tremendous pace the political empowerment of women. The representation of women in political, social, and government institutions, but also the empowerment of women in decision making and facilitation of areas to make them economically self-sufficient, productive, and equal participants in the economy of the country. If you put the women aside, you are denying yourself the talent of 50% of your population. In fact, women in many places are slightly over 50%. Now, by forgetting women, you are denying yourself that opportunity of the brain, the talent, the resourcefulness of women into building the nation. It is just common sense, and it's not charity, it's not a favor. It is a self-interest to the men and to the nation that women must be equal participants so that we can tap their talents, their abilities, and put them in the national talent grid, so to speak. And what we need to do now is not only to ensure that this process that has been continued by the fourth phase government is continued, but to entrench this in the Constitution. I think the current draft of the Constitution has adequately looked at how to institutionalize and how to empower more the women. The women's rights, like children's rights, must first and foremost be entrenched in the Constitution. And then this must be translated into policies and programs for that implementation. Many times we have given ourselves timelines or time frames, and I think this has gone a long way to speed up implementation. We need to sustain the political will and the leadership by example that this fourth government has set before us. It is still an uphill struggle, but I personally am very delighted that the men are realizing that they need the women. And that partnership is now creatively emerging between men and women. I want to put a special assistance program to the mothers of this nation in the effort to recreate and recover the discipline and ethics among the young generation. It's not enough to weave these ethics into the curriculum and the education system. But the upbringing, the discipline, and the ethics and the manners start at home. The family is the nucleus of the national ethics. And the mothers are in the forefront. The attachment of children to the mother, especially the first years, is instrumental in shaping our children. If we are complaining about the erosion of ethics, I think we must go to the basics and involve the mothers in this process. On the issue of national transportation, this country, especially during the fourth phase, we have seen tremendous expansion of all-weather roads, tarmac-grade roads. And the economy is growing at a fast rate, but we are almost 80% dependent on road transportation alone. The lifespan of these roads, if this trend continues, will only be 3 to 5 years. And without a maintenance system, or it will be so expensive to maintain these roads. Already, if you travel outside Dar es Salaam, on the highway, you meet traffic jam of trucks with carrying capacity of 20 to 40 tons. Now, this is unsustainable. There must be complementarity between railway, transportation, marine and water transportation, and land transportation. I look with praise and sometimes envy at how our neighboring countries have developed their air transport system in a very short time, very successful. Tanzania is still lagging behind. The combination of land, railway, water transport, we have 1,000 kilometers of this ocean. Part of our country is the two islands and the islands of Mafia. In Lake Victoria, in Lake Nyasa, in Lake Tanganyika, we need water transport. But the railway was the backbone of industrialization. If Vision 2025 envisages industrialization, there are certain ABCDs that we have to undertake to realize the industrialization of this country to make it a middle-income country. One is to streamline and rationalize the transportation system, to realize not only economies of scale, but to reach out to all parts of the country and to create complementarity without anybody losing. The road transporters will not lose. Railway transportation will not lose, but create a system of complementarity. In the same way as to run an efficient transport system in the four areas of land, ocean, seas, lakes, railways, and air, you need a cadre of technicians to support this. We have made many strides. We have engineers. We have many people now. Most of our institutions are producing degrees. But we forget that to create an efficient transport system, whether it's railway or land, you need middle cadre technicians. The ratio of one engineer must be accompanied by 25 technicians, whether they are managers of railway stations, they are repairers of locomotives, or now that this country is entering the electrification phase in the rural areas. This must be an integral part of industrialization. The electrification in the village shouldn't only be for lighting, which is good. People will have more time to talk, children will be able to read at home, but eventually it must be an integral part of the industrial strategy. And in the villages, you need technicians. I think this is an area where Vision 2025 has to reckon with and make sure that the transportation is put in place in a way that will make this country connected, not only nationally, but also regionally. Regional integration must be a priority for realizing Vision 2025. And in the infrastructure sector, it's not only the power sector, but also the transportation sector. The regional integration infrastructure system that will connect the neighboring countries must be an essential part of Vision 2025 for Tanzania. And regional integration should include all the vital sectors: agriculture, industry, transportation, animal husbandry, business. And for the business community and to the agriculture, my message is that industrialization in Tanzania can take place through three sources. The capital that will be generated from agriculture. That's how the Industrial Revolution in the other countries took place. The capital that will be generated from the commercial sector and business. We must empower our business people to make savings and facilitate their savings, to go beyond buying and selling, and to be able to accumulate capital that will go into industrialization. When we are talking of Kilimo Kwanza, we must also connect the ABCDs that need to develop agriculture so that it can be a source of capital that will go into the industry. Then, of course, capital from foreign partners, but with adequate leverage on our negotiations that the Tanzanians participate in this. And this must be seen holistically. And all the facets that go in one sector must be complete, not piecemeal. Then you have a global picture of how to connect and the interconnectedness between these sectors if this country is to move beyond. Of course, the underlying and the bedrock must be good governance to get rid of that disease called corruption. And then these sectors will move with a vision and with supervision and governance that will benefit this country and move us from least developed countries, not only to the middle income country, but then propel our forward movement. And that's why my principles of solidify, consolidate the foundation, and refocus the direction of this country. I would also want to touch on a sector which is growing and becoming of great importance to Tanzania, and that is tourism. It is a manifestation of the goodwill, but also of the many features that Tanzania has. Tourism is now the #1 foreign exchange earner. It used to be agriculture, and it should be agriculture. But I'm gratified and I'm happy, and I think we should build more on this tourism. But I want to highlight one issue about our tourist attractions in this country. Tanzania is endowed with the natural and historical sites that happen to be in Tanzania. They happen to be God-given, but they are part of the human heritage. Tanzania is therefore entrusted as a custodian of these sites, whether they are natural phenomena like the Ngorongoro or the Serengeti, or historical sites like Olduvai Gorge, and the footprints and the ruins of Kilwa and the rest of East Africa. So we must always remember that we are the custodians of this world heritage, and that will go a long way to enhance tourism in this country. I want to conclude by saying thank you very much for your attention, and again to the leaders of the party and the government, and to the people of Tanzania. I present myself to be considered for nomination as a candidate for the presidency of this country for the 5th phase government. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Akaingia simba na nyati, akaingia chui na mbuzi, naye pundamilia na twiga, hata na ndege wote. Muujiza uchumi wa nchi watalii tele, shirika la TANAPA, mbuga za wanyama, Serengeti, Manyara, Tarangire, Mikumi.
by introducing myself.